What is going on, everyone? How are you? If you're here live in the chat, welcome. If you're watching on replay, welcome. Today, we are going to be reading the first part of Cinderella. It's rather long. And the reason I wanted to read Cinderella with you is because I can. It's not copyrighted. I won't get in trouble if I'm reading anything that has been published in the last 50 years. I might get in trouble for just reading that, but I won't get in trouble for copyright. There are laws here in the United States that prevent me from doing that. And also, I wanted to pick a story that you might be familiar with in your own native language. So, Cinderella is pretty well known around the world, I think. I did a little research, and the Brothers Grimm. It's where we get most of our fairy tales in the United States. Parents often will read fairy tales to their kids before bedtime. And I guess there were a couple brothers in Germany in about the 1800s, early 1800s, and they wrote a bunch of these fairy tales. But it could be a couple thousand years old, coming from, I saw some sources say Cinderella was first written in Egypt. Others say it might have been in Italy much later, but this is a very old tale, Cinderella. So I thought most people would be familiar with it. And a couple weeks ago, I was reading a book by Stephen King, and in it, he said that Cinderella was actually really, really violent. So I went looking for that version of Cinderella and found it. And it is actually quite violent. So I want to say hey to Cecilia. How are you? Carl is here. How are you? Anya's here from Germany. I don't know if you were here when I was mentioning Germany, but the Brothers Grimm, we get a lot of our fairy tales in the United States from the Brothers Grimm. So Cinderella, as I read through this, I do want to pause and talk about some words that might be difficult if you're learning English. But the great thing about this is you will have a reader. I think I'm okay. I think I'm an okay reader. I'm a reading teacher. I should be pretty good at reading. You'll have the text right on the screen, and then we can talk about any words that might be a little bit confusing. Lena, Cecilia, welcome, everyone. Oh, yes. What? They lived in the town you live in, the Brothers Grimm. And like I was saying earlier, maybe this comes from a little bit, or a lot earlier in Egypt or Italy, but the Brothers Grimm made it famous for so many people around the world. Oh, thank you, Celia. It's always nice to hear. Thank you. So let's get right into it. I have about a half an hour. So what I want to do is read the first half today and then maybe the second half next week. So there'll be a part 2. But I hope that I read at a pace that is not too hard, not too fast, just right. If you're familiar with Goldilocks and the Three Bears, I hope that's not violent. I hope the bears don't eat Goldilocks at the end. I'll have to research that. But in English, Goldilocks is going through the house and saying, oh, this bed is too hard. This bed is too soft. This bed is just right. So that's what I hope I'm going to do, is read at a pace that is just right for you. Before we do that, got to say hi to Ibrahim from Egypt. Hey, maybe Cinderella started in Egypt. Not sure. How's it going? It's going pretty well. Good to see you here. So let's get into a little bit of Cinderella. In the description box, if you want this PDF, it's not mine. I didn't write this. But like I said, it's old enough that I can copy this. And I did highlight a few things. You'll see it in yellow. And that's what I want to talk about. I'll pause in those places and we'll talk about it. Yeah, Cecilia and Ibrahim are some of the first members of the channel, like the other channel. It's been over a year. I think I first met Cecilia and Ibrahim maybe in February of last year. I think it is. So welcome. You're still around. Good to see you. So I must put on my glasses for this so I can read it properly. I may just go full screen here. You don't need to see my face as I read this. So we have Cinderella, and of course, these are the Brothers Grimm. A rich man's wife became sick, and when she felt that her end was drawing near, she called her only daughter to her bedside and said, "Dear child, remain pious and good, and then our dear God will always protect you, and I will look down on you from heaven and be near you." With this, she closed her eyes and died. Oh, what a great bedtime story, huh? Hey, let mom read this to you. Mom dies in the first paragraph. But also, we have this word pious that might be new for you. And if it is, there's the definition. And it just means living your life in a way that whatever your religion is, that religious leader will be happy. By the way, I don't want to assume anybody is Muslim in here, but if you are, Ramadan, happy Ramadan. Or is it Ramadan Mubarak? Is that how you say it in Arabic? I hope so. But that is what pious means. It means whatever your religion is, it's living your life like, a God or God would like it. Pious. So there is a bit of religion in here. Next paragraph. The girl went out to her mother's grave every day and wept, and she remained pious and good. When winter came, the snow spread a white cloth over her grave. And when the spring sun had removed it again, the man took himself another wife. I would not be a good English teacher if I didn't at least talk about this metaphor. And my students and I, we're talking about metaphor right now because we're talking about poetry. And in English, a metaphor is when you compare two things without using like or as. So here, the winter came and spread this like white cloth over the grave. So a cloth is a thin piece of fabric you might have on your bed, but they're saying here the snow made a white cloth on her grave. And then the husband gets married again very quickly. This was common back then. People didn't live so long, and the guy usually needed help with the kids. So Cinderella's dad gets another wife. You know where this is going, right? The stepsisters. The evil stepsisters. But in the end, spoiler alert, we'll spoil it, right? We'll read the end next week. The end. Like, there are birds that poke out the stepsisters' eyes. I mean, they're evil and everything, but at the end, like, what kind of a bedtime story is that for little kids? Pretty violent. It's gonna get, I don't know if it gets violent in part one. It will get violent though. Third paragraph here. Let me bring this up a little higher. The wife brought two daughters into the house with her. They were beautiful, with fair faces, but evil and dark hearts. Times soon grew very bad for the poor stepchild. Why should that stupid goose sit in the parlor with us? They said. If she wants to eat bread, then she will have to earn it. Out with this kitchen maid. They took her beautiful clothes away from her, dressed her in an old gray smock, and gave her wooden shoes. Just look at the proud princess. How decked out she is, they shouted and laughed as they led her into the kitchen. I mean, this is just awful. But we do have a phrasal verb that I would like to talk about here, and it's decked out. We will usually use that as dressed up. So maybe I have a fancy party to go to, and I might get all decked out. I might wear a tuxedo or something like that. So if you hear the phrasal verb decked out, it actually does mean like really dressed up, fancy clothes. Here it doesn't mean that, but in modern day English, That's what decked out means. Back to the story. There, she had to do hard work from morning until evening, get up before daybreak, carry water, make the fires, and cook and wash. Besides this, the sisters did everything imaginable to hurt her. They made fun of her, scattered peas and lentils into the ashes for her, so that she had to sit and pick them out again. In the evening, when she had worked herself weary, there was no bed for her. Instead, she had to sleep by the hearth and the ashes. And because she always looked dusty and dirty, they called her Cinderella. Oh, hey, Ivana. Welcome. Ramadan Mubarak. I'm sorry. All right, Anya. See you later. The next one is a hearth. So that's just the area in front of a fireplace. Fairy tales love to use that word hearth. So it's just like right before the fireplace. And Cinderella apparently means little ashes. There's going to be a lot of talk of lentils, which is like just a vegetable. Lentils and peas going into the dirt. I don't know why, but yeah, little ashes, Cinderella, possibly coming from Italian. Next part here. Let's see, move this up. One day, it happened that the father was going to the fair, and he asked his two stepdaughters what he should bring back for them. Beautiful dresses, said the one. Pearls and jewels, said the other. And you, Cinderella, he said, what do you want? Father, break off for me the first twig that brushes against your hat on your way home. Now, I do have a question here. We need to talk for a second. The dad is still in the house. Doesn't he see the way that the stepsisters treat Cinderella? Like, shouldn't he be doing something about this? And I'm not sure if anyone here is a fan of Shakespeare. Hey, Dr. Luke is here. But if you are, now I'll be brief with this. But when I read this, it reminded me of a play by Shakespeare called King Lear. And in King Lear, there is one good daughter. Like, she wants her dad to do well. He's a king. He's rich. She's very loyal to him. But there are two other daughters that all they want is money. And this part reminded me of King Lear. So I'm not sure if Shakespeare, I didn't find a lot of information on it. There were some papers written about it, but I'm not sure if Shakespeare used Cinderella as inspiration. It wouldn't have been the Brothers Grimm, because Shakespeare was writing late 1500s, early 1600s, Brothers Grimm, early 1800s, about 2 years after. Ivana, fan of Shakespeare. We may have to talk Shakespeare one day. Samra, how are you? Yeah, I'm a big fan of Shakespeare too. If you read the real, Shakespearean English, just know that it's not how we speak. If you've seen any Shakespearean English, you probably know that. But even for native speakers, even for myself, if I sit down to read Shakespeare, I really have to be fresh. It's difficult for most native speakers. So don't feel badly if you're learning English and you're like, what? Shakespeare? Yeah, even native speakers. Yeah, I would argue, I would say that if, you're learning English and you just, want to have business conversations in English, I mean, that's at a pretty high level. You don't need Shakespeare. But if you, hey, Amina, welcome. We're just reading through Cinderella. I have to go in just a few minutes, about 15 minutes. But yeah, Yeah, okay, technically, it's actually not Old English. Old English is even more difficult. It would be like if you've ever heard of Beowulf. Beowulf is, I think that's even written in Middle English, and it's almost a different language. So believe it or not, Shakespeare would be written in, you might say, Elizabethan English. It's sometimes called that, but like it's modern English, but just kind of crazy. All right, Samra. Hope you're having, I don't know, is it I know Turkey might be, most of the country could be celebrating Ramadan, the start of Ramadan today. So if so, I hope the sun is down, and I hope you've had a good party, and I hope your belly's full. Hope that's how it's going there. All right, let's continue with this. Like I said, next week, we will finish this. But I just don't have quite time to do it today. It's long. Where did we end? Yes. So Cinderella requested the dad break off a twig. That's all she wants. She's not interested in money. So he bought beautiful dresses and pearls and jewels for his two stepdaughters. On his way home, as he was riding through a green thicket, a hazel twig brushed against him and knocked off his hat. Then he broke off the twig and took it with him. Arriving home, he gave his stepdaughters the things that they had asked for, and he gave Cinderella the twig from the hazel bush. Cinderella thanked him and went to her mother's grave and planted the branch on it, and she wept. I didn't put wept as one, but you could also say for this cried. She cried. Wept is a little bit older. It just is the past tense of weep, which is also crying. She cried so much. Could have said that. She wept so much that her tears fell upon it and watered it. It grew and became a beautiful tree. Cinderella went to the tree 3 times a day, and beneath it she wept and prayed. A white bird came to the tree every time, and whenever she expressed a wish, the bird would throw down to her what she had wished for. Well, that sounds like a pretty good idea, right? You have a bird. This is a fairy tale, I guess, but you have a bird. Unfortunately, your mom is dead, but whatever you wish, it just brings it down. Why didn't she wish for the stepsisters to disappear? Done. Story's over. So I guess that would be too easy. Hey, little bird, get rid of my, or maybe it's only items that she can throw down. The bird, the bird can throw down. I don't know. Now it happened that the king proclaimed. I do have a little banner for this. Proclaimed. So it's officially announced. It's not just said, proclaimed. So it's even higher than just said. Mostly kings and queens will proclaim something. So it's supposed to be followed. It's supposed to be official. The king proclaimed a festival that was to last 3 days, and all the beautiful young girls in the land were invited so that his son could select a bride for himself. When the 2 stepsisters heard that, they too had been invited. I'm sorry, I should reread that again. When the stepsisters heard that they too had been invited, they were in high spirits. They called Cinderella, saying, "Comb our hair for us, brush our shoes, and fasten our buckles. We are going to the festival at the king's castle." And fasten, it means to close up securely. One of the most common ways you'll hear fasten is right before you drive or get into a car where someone else is driving. You should fasten your seatbelt. It's almost like tie, but you wouldn't say, "I need to tie my shoes." If you are wearing a belt around your waist, You might say, I need to fasten my belt, but fasten. I didn't know if people knew fasten. And wept, yeah, just the past tense of cried, in case you didn't know. Yes, I do love reading. Ibrahim, I do love reading. The book, the book I have it's in my bag. My bag is right down there, but I do Stephen King. I still have these. This is in Italian. I can't quite read it without a lot of help, but I am reading something called Later by Stephen King. It's great. It's about a young boy. At the beginning of the book, he's about 6, and he has the ability to see dead people. But the dead people in the book only last for like a couple days. Eventually, they will fade. He won't be able to see them. But for the first day after they die, he can actually talk to them. And it's just Stephen King's my favorite author, and it's called Later. And if you are into Stephen King, I highly recommend it. Julia, I hope all is well in France today. So I'm reading How to Fail, I think it is. How to Fail at Everything and Still Win Big by Scott Adams. Yeah, I know Ibrahim is always reading these great books, like motivational, empowering. So yeah, that's awesome. And Cecilia, Stephen King. I love Stephen King. And Ibrahim, I hope your podcast is going well. I don't think I've listened since the second episode, but I will have to look back. The first and second episodes were great. Good stuff. Ibrahim, keep it up. If you want in the chat, leave the name of your podcast, Ibrahim. If anybody else wants to listen to it, anybody here live or anybody on the replay, I highly recommend Ibrahim's podcast. So the next one here, we read wept. But it looks like things are going to go bad here. Cinderella obeyed but wept because she too would have liked to go to the dance with them. She begged her stepmother to allow her to go. This is pretty. Look at this tense right here. She would have liked to go. That's pretty complicated right there. She would have liked to go to the dance with them. You, Cinderella, she said, you, all covered with dust and dirt, and you want to go to the festival. You have, little typo there. They have a period and a question mark. You have neither clothes nor shoes, and yet you want to dance. However, because Cinderella kept asking, the stepmother finally said, I have scattered a bowl of lentils into the ashes for you. If you can pick them out again in 2 hours, then you may go with us. The girl went through the back door into the garden and called out, Yo, tame pigeons, you turtle doves, and all you birds beneath the sky, come and help me gather. The good ones go into the pot, the bad ones go into your crop. 2 white pigeons came through the kitchen window, and then the turtle doves, and finally all the birds beneath the sky came whirring and swarming in and lit around the ashes. It's basically, we would not say that anymore, lit and lit around, but that is probably more like landed. It's not used anymore, but you can think of it as landed instead, the past tense of landed. Yeah, Ibrahim, I don't know if they would be, your cup of tea. I'm not sure if you would like them, but I would encourage you maybe start with the Green Mile. The Green Mile is great, and it was made into a movie, so that might be one to start with. Oh, good, Julia. So glad. Well, let me keep reading. That's awesome. Let's get rid of this. Back to the story. And we are right here. The pigeons nodded their heads and began to pick, 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 pick. And the others also began to pick, 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 pick. They gathered all the good grains into the bowl. Hardly 1 hour had passed before they were finished, and they all flew out again. The girl took the bowl to her stepmother and was happy, thinking that now she would be allowed to go to the festival with them. But the stepmother said, "No, Cinderella, you have no clothes and you don't know how to dance. Everyone would only laugh at you." Cinderella began to cry, and then the stepmother said, "You may go if you are able to pick 2 bowls of lentils out of the ashes for me in 1 hour," thinking to herself, she will never be able to do that. The girl went through the back door into the garden and called out, "You tame pigeons, you turtle doves, and all you birds beneath the sky, come and help me to gather. The good ones go into the pot, the bad ones go into your crop." 2 white pigeons came in through the kitchen window, and then the turtle doves. And finally, all the birds beneath the sky came whirring and swarming in and lit around the ashes. The pigeons nodded their heads and began to pick, 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 pick. And the others also began to pick, 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 pick. They gathered all the good grains into the bowl. Before half hour had passed, they were finished, and they all flew out again. The girls, no, just one girl there. The girl took the bowl to her stepmother and was happy, thinking that now she would be allowed to go to the festival with them. But the stepmother said, "It's no use. You're not coming with us, for you have no clothes and you don't know how to dance. We would be ashamed of you." With this, she turned her back on Cinderella and hurried away with her 2 proud daughters. So we should maybe talk about ashamed. If you're not familiar with that word, it's just a synonym for embarrassed. So because Cinderella is always covered in ash and soot, those are 2 things we say after you burn wood: ashes and soot. She's dirty. We'd be ashamed of you, Cinderella. You're not good enough. Very sad. Let's talk about the next one while we're here. It's embroidered. I think a tough word to say. Embroidered. Embroidered. And that just means I don't have anything embroidered. But when you take a needle and thread and you stitch maybe somebody's name into an article of clothing, that would be embroidered. In the United States, a lot of older ladies like to wear embroidered clothes. I don't want to stereotype, but it's a lot of older ladies that will have that thread stitched into their clothing, embroidered. And the last one for today, we'll talk about it before we read it. And then when we get to it, you might know it. Escort. Escort. Be careful with this one. It can be a verb meaning to walk with someone. So during an American wedding, at least in the United States, when a bride is about to get married, she will often be escorted down the aisle by her father. Escort. But it can be a noun, and an escort is another name, a nice name, I guess, for a prostitute. So be careful with that. If it's not always. Sometimes when you're going to a dance, you might go with an escort. They will go with you. So it's not always a prostitute. I hope you know what a prostitute is in English, because I don't want to talk about what a prostitute is, but hopefully you know, or maybe if you don't, you can look it up. Oh, so wicked, right, Cecilia? Stepmother. So wicked. Unnecessary. Cinderella seems so nice. Allergies. I hope nobody else has allergies. Now that no one else was at home, Cinderella went to her mother's grave beneath the hazel tree and cried out, "Shake and quiver, little tree, throw gold and silver down to me." Then the bird threw a gold and silver dress down to her, and slippers embroidered with silk and silver. She quickly put on the dress and went to the festival. Her stepsisters and her stepmother did not recognize her. They thought she must be a foreign princess, for she looked so beautiful in the golden dress. They never once thought it was Cinderella, for they thought that she was sitting at home in the dirt looking for lentils in the ashes. The prince approached her and took her by the hand and danced with her. Furthermore, he would dance with no one else. He never let go of her hand, and whenever anyone else came and asked her to dance, he would say, "She's my dance partner." She danced until evening, and then she wanted to go home. But the prince said, "I will go along and escort you," for he wanted to see to whom the beautiful girl belonged. However, she eluded him and jumped into the pigeon coop. The prince waited until her father came, and then he told them that the unknown girl had jumped into the pigeon coop. The old man thought, could it be Cinderella? He had them bring him an axe and a pick so that he could break the pigeon coop apart, but no one was inside. When they got home, Cinderella was lying in the ashes, dressed in her dirty clothes. A dim little oil lamp was burning in the fireplace. Cinderella had quickly jumped down from the back of the pigeon coop and had run to the hazel tree. There she had taken off her beautiful clothes and laid them on the grave, and the bird had taken them away again. Then dressed her. Sorry. Hang on. I'm trying to highlight this because the commas are very important here. Then, dressed in her gray smock, she had returned to the ashes in the kitchen. So that is about all. Yeah, that's about all the time I have for today. But next week, I would love to finish reading Cinderella with you. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope it's a story you're familiar with, but maybe just challenging enough that it will help you seeing the text, hearing my voice, reading along. I think one of the best ways to learn a foreign language is to read. So I hope this was, oh yes, spring allergies. Not very fun. Not very fun. Ibrahim, one of the first things I said, I don't think you were in here yet. Nobody's exactly sure where Cinderella came from, but if you look at some sources, Cinderella could be originally from Egypt, could be first from Egypt. Yeah, I saw that, I promise. So these stories are so old, though, that not everyone can agree where they came from. Oh, Ivana, so glad. Cecilia, thank you. So I think like this time next week, I'll try to get back. I'll have some more notes for the second part. If I think there's some tough material, vocabulary, terms, sentences, whatever, if it's tough, come back. And it gets violent. Those shoes are not going to fit in the slipper, but those stepsisters are going to try to make them fit in the slipper. Any means possible. All right, Dr. Luke, thank you so much. Thank you all for stopping by. Don't forget, Saturday, there is another live stream on the other channel. Let me just put a link there in case you're not aware. And then after that, there are some channel members in here. After that, there will be, spoiler alert, yes, Cecilia, there will be a members chat for about an hour right before Bob the Canadian's chat. So hope you all have a great rest of the night. I think it's pretty late where you're at. Yeah, I'm going to try to have an amazing, I'm going to try. I hope you do as well. All right. We'll see you all later. Thanks so much.